Welcome to week 9 lecture. I hope you had some rest during the reading week and the reaction video making was not that toxic last week, and thank you very much for submitting the reaction videos. I bet maybe most of you, maybe all of you have not really created a reaction video before, and it was first time, and hopefully it was not that bad and somewhat enjoyable doing it, right? And let's start with week 6 discussion forum postings. And the first question by group 8, the question 1, can structured collaboration exist in other fan cultures? And many of you answered this, participated in this discussion question, said yes, right? So the collaboration exists in many fandoms, but K-pop fandoms are kind of special because they show the most organized and strategic collaboration model. And the second question by group 8 was, why do fandoms collaborate between when supporting even when supporting competing groups, right? So many of you also chose to answer this discussion question. So the consensus is that the rivalry exists, but shared cultural goals and strategic fan labor encourage cooperation. They're helping each other because they have their own, agenda in mind, and helping each other is beneficial for both fan groups, right? And group 9's first question was, can global fandom communities compensate for everyday social exclusion, right? And in conclusion, based on your forum discussions, fandom communities can reduce feelings of isolation, but there's a limitation, right? But they cannot fully replace real-world belonging, right? And the second question by group 9 was, does K-pop empower youth or distract from structural inequalities, right? And K-pop fandom provide, definitely fandoms provide emotional support, like some sort of influence on identity formation and some sense of belonging to certain communities, right? And fans can often build cross-class and cross-cultural transnational networks of belonging, right? But so in that sense, K-pop fandom can be empowering, but at the same time limiting, depending on how fans engage with it, right? Okay, so this week's we're going to talk about group 10's presentation, and then Michelle Zhou's reading that was supposed to be presented by group 11, but the submission was too last minute, so I couldn't include group 11's presentation in the lecture, so I'm gonna just refer to the reading itself. So group 10 posed 2 questions, and my lecture also include 2 questions in it, so you can choose any of the questions. And group 11's, the Michelle Zhou's reading, the group 11 submitted their YouTube video link, but I just cannot copy it now somehow, so I asked for the YouTube link again to the group. So when I get the right link from them, I will post to our to our lecture section on our e-class. So you're welcome to screen group 11's presentation and also chose to answer one of their discussion questions that they raised in their presentation. But as soon as I get the correct working link, I will link it to our to our lecture section. Okay, so both readings, right, focus on how K-pop travels globally and how fans shape its meaning and circulation. And let's start with group 10's presentation, right? And there are 3 key arguments is that the first one, K-pop spread globally through fan translation and mediation, right? And as you know, K-pop is globally popular, so it means it's spreading cross-border, right? And in that spread, the the fans' role is huge because they translate, for other, Korean to the languages where they, to the country where they belong to and all that, right? And the second argument is the third space of fandom. The K-pop fandom becomes a hybrid cultural space where identities and meanings are negotiated. And the group 10's third argument is about the global power reversal, right? And K-pop challenges a traditional flow of cultural globalization dominated by Western media. So the flow was from west to east, right? Or from center to periphery, but K-pop is like, the direction is kind of reversed, right? Okay, so let's move on to the connections part. I think the group 10's way of making the connections was by each argument, right? That is okay doing it, but was not that clear which part is internal connection, which part is external connection. And obviously, one of the arguments, there is a connection made to David O's article from earlier course meetings, right? David O's research on white K-pop reactors, right? So that's definitely an internal connection that our group made, but maybe the other connections were mainly external, but it would be helpful to you just name it. This is internal connection, or this is external connection, right? And also for the external connections, we need some more like a explanation what those are, right? Maybe because you research it and you present it, you know what those are, all those external, maybe sources that you're talking about. But the audience may not have a good idea what they are, right? So if you don't have enough time, then you can reduce the number of external sources and just explain a little bit more or better, right? And anyways, the group 10's reading and David O's both readings highlight that cultural hybridity often produces tension rather than harmony. So far, when you talked about hybridity, we kind of have treated this concept more like a positive standpoint, right? So creating something new from combining, different cultures or different elements of cultures, right? But then it's not usually always harmonious when there is hybridity is happening, right? There can be some tension, right? And it's quite a good point. And the discussion questions by group 10. Does the fan practice of translating K-pop create a genuine space for cross-cultural understanding, or does it simply repackage a foreign product for Western audience? This is a really good question, and it's worth thinking about it, right? Whether it's really, promoting cross-cultural understanding, or it's just like, you're putting just translation onto it, right? But, to answer this, how this fan practice, not only how it is produced, but how it is consumed, right? During the consumption, maybe more genuine cultural understanding can happen too, right? So it's not only production part from the fan producer standpoint, but how that is being consumed by other fans, right? And the second question is, do fans help people truly understand K-pop culture, or do they change it to make it easier for Western audience to enjoy? So I think the first and second questions are kind of related, right? Again, you can think about if you have your own experience of consuming K-pop culture product through fan translated or fan produced materials, then did it really help you understand Korean popular culture better, or it was just easy for you to just get it what it is, right? So maybe if you have some experience, you can talk from your own experience, right? And building on group 10's presentation, right? We can kind of delve into the fan translation, what really is, right? Is it like only the language translation? But it's more than that. They're like serving as a cultural mediator, right? So fans do not simply translate meaning, but they also frame how global audiences understand K-pop, right? And this raises an important question. If international fans are mediating the meaning of K-pop, whose version of Korean culture is actually being circulated globally, right? So the original version, let's say if there is such a thing called original version, original version when it was first released, like a K-pop song, for example, right? So that must contain some what we call, some Korean element or whatever authentically Korean that what we don't know what that is, but it contains something like a Korean, right? But then when fan translators or fans translate that into other languages that belong to their own culture, right? They are not simply just making translations word by word, right? Actually, translation task itself, you cannot just translate word by word. Sometimes you have to put your own, some word does not exist in both cultures, not in the exact same meaning, right? Or same understanding or nuances, right? So then you have to decide which one best represent the real meaning or Korean meaning, right? So in that kind of choice, your understanding of your own culture, right? Or meanings of your, meanings of words in your own language and culture must be embedded, right? And then it gets the flavor of your own culture, right? So then is that really, is that still kind of Korean? Or is there a different version of, Korean culture, right? So definitely it's not the original when it is translated, right? And it's kind of an interpreted version of Korean culture by the fan translators, right? And then another point, the globalization from the periphery. So traditionally, globalization was described as west to the west. I mean, west to the east and the west, right? Or center to the periphery, right? But K-pop complicates this matter. It's not, the direction doesn't match, right? So even when cultural products come from periphery, like from Korea, they still rely on global digital platforms like YouTube and global fan networks and transnational labor, right? And also the music form itself is not traditionally from Korea, right? The K-pop music is from the West, the genre of K-pop music, right? The original genre, right? So the key question becomes, is K-pop truly reversing global cultural power, or is it operating within existing global media systems, right? So it's not really truly reversing it, right? It is operating within existing media system, global media systems, right? But still, it is still meaningful because that the direction from west to the west or west to east, K-pop doesn't fit into that traditional direction, right? It shows that it can be the opposite direction too, right? Okay, so the Cho's article that Group 11 is supposed to present, right? The key argument by Michelle Cho's article, actually Michelle Cho is a prop at the U of T here. So K-pop, the first argument, the K-pop combines music, calligraphy, music videos, social media, and real life content, right? So it creates multiple points of engagement for fans. It's not just one engagement, one type of engagement or enjoyment. It's multiple layers or multiple components of the engagement as a fan you can have with K-pop, and also like a lot of ways of enjoying K-pop, right? And fan participation is central to K-pop's media ecosystem. We have talked about this is a persistent theme throughout the semester, right? Fans actively produce and circulate content such as reaction videos, dance covers, translations, and edits, right? So this also Group 10 talked about this too. And K-pop fans generate vicariety and serial effect. So fans share emotional experiences through layers of mediated reactions. So Michelle Jo's here, the concept here is that emotional engagement with idols does not happen only once. It's like it's a serial, right? Instead, it's repeated and extended through multiple layers of media, not just one song, right? It's like if there's a song, then fans may look for some reaction videos about this certain song and mashups and fan responses that circulate online. So they will look for anything related to that song or that group, and it's multiple layers, right? And the discussion questions, let's think about how social media shapes emotional relationships between fans and celebrities, right? So the first question, do you think social media makes fans feel emotionally closer to celebrities? What kind of content creates that feelings, If you feel like if fans, they feel like they are closer to celebrities through social media, but in the social media, what kind of content especially create that kind of feelings, right? And the second question today, many fans create their own content, like dance covers, edits, reaction videos, and translations, and so on. Why do you think fans are motivated to create and share these materials instead of just consuming, K-pop music, right? Okay. And just building on to Michelle Jo's article, the key concept, one of the key concepts in Jo's article is real life content, right? So K-pop companies produce a wide range of media that shows idols' everyday lives. These include vlogs, behind the scenes videos, live streams, and social media posts, right? These forms of content help strengthen what media scholars call parasocial relationships. So parasocial relationships refer to one-sided emotional bonds that audiences develop with media figures. Even though fans do not personally know idols, these mediated glimpses into everyday life of their idols create a feeling of emotional closeness, right? They feel emotionally close, right? So Jo argues that the ordinary moments, such as idols eating, practicing dancing, singing, or chatting online, are transformed into media content and fan engagement strategies. In other words, everyday life becomes a part of the entertainment system. It's one of the main contents, right? And this everyday life becomes, some content that produce profit, right? And finally, Jo connected K-pop fandom to platform culture, right? So digital platforms such as YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter make it easier for fans to create and circulate their own content, right? Fans produce reaction videos, dance covers, fan edits, and lyric translations, and so on, which continuously expand the media ecosystem surrounding K-pop. Through this circulation, emotional responses are repeated and amplified across different media networks, right? This is what Jo described as serial effect, a chain of emotional reactions that move from one piece of media to another, right? And as a result, fans are not only audiences, but also active participants in the platform ecosystem. They function both as consumers and as producers of K-pop media content that we so far we have also repeatedly talked about, right? So in conclusion, K-pop's global success is shaped not only by entertainment companies, not only also by the idols' talent or how excellent they are, how well they sing and how well they dance, right? But also by fan labor that translates, interprets, and circulates the culture, K-pop culture globally, right? And at the same time, as both Group 10's presentation and Michelle Jo's reading suggest, global K-pop fandom creates hybrid spaces where cultural meanings, identities, and power are constantly negotiated, right? Okay, thank you so much for your attention to the lecture. And as I announced in the in today's announcement, this group presentation is nothing like other submission, like you submitted your reaction video and you will submit your final research project, right? Those things are just you submit and I grade, and we don't use that for our subsequent lectures, right? But group presentations, as you all know, we structure around this the lecture, whole class around the group presentations, right? I build my lecture based on the group presentation, and your discussion, forum postings are also based on group presentations. So, extension and things like that cannot be allowed, right? Unless there's extraordinary circumstances like a death in family, for example, right? A lot of work or burden, not enough time. It's not an excuse, right? Even you're a little bit sick, unless you're hospitalized, right? You cannot really, I wouldn't expect that you will work on your group presentations. But sometimes I feel under the weather, but I will still, record a lecture because there are some things that we have to do for, it's a whole class. The ramification of not submitting your group presentation on time is not just to you or your group, it affects the whole class structure, right? So please hand in your group presentation in time, right? I haven't really had this not having group presentation submitted on time until this year, until this class. I've taught many classes over 20 years at York. It never really happened before, but it was a second time happening. I don't know what's wrong here. Maybe I wasn't clear about the importance of the submitting group presentation, in time. I didn't need to emphasize it too much because so far, all the groups in the past, in multiple classes, have submitted their presentation on time, right? So maybe I didn't expect that this would happen ever. So then, first time was surprising. Second time is even more surprising, right? And until you get my approval, you don't have approval. I wouldn't have approved anyways. But even if I didn't answer, then you have to seek my approval again by sending me another email, right? So, anyways, but most of other group except for 2 submitted your group presentations in time, and it means a lot, and it's truly really appreciated. And the rest of the groups who have to still submit, please be on time, right? And if you're not sure, you may not have enough time right before the deadline, then start working on it earlier, right? You knew when is your presentation from the beginning of the semester, right? So let me stop my nagging here because I thought I didn't need to. It's so necessary. You know what your responsibility is, right? And I believe really, right? Okay, so the final project 2, we have about a month to work on, right? So if you want to do it just a week before submission date, you may feel like, you don't have enough time, right? So start now if you haven't already started. And along the way, if you have questions, please email me, okay? Okay. Thank you for your attention, and this is it for today, okay?